back to the Gold Club World Championship. I am Dread. Now with me is Grubby. And you know what? I'm not even going to keep you guys waiting. Next up is what probably most of you at home are looking for in terms of the series. It is North America versus Europe, Fnatic versus Roll20. Immediate thoughts?
Yeah, get your continental bias ready, because there's only one continent that is the best, and this match is going to determine it definitively, finally.
For the remainder of time of Heroes of the Storm, this is it. It all came down to this.
It all comes down to this, or at least it may feel that way for these 10 guys here on stage. Now, this is a pretty big match. We've got Fnatic versus Roll20, and Roll20 is the sole representative of North America here at the Gold Club World Championship. Last year it was Tempo Storm. This time it is going to be Roll20. They've been doing pretty good so far, but this is going to be one of their greatest challenges yet.
I think the best gauge on what we can expect here between the two teams would be the fact that Roll20 has gone up against Team Dignitas already throughout the tournament, and the fact that they did end up struggling into Team Dignitas 0-2. It shows that, you know, I feel like I do think that Fnatic has shown to be the slightly better team of the European representative, so I'm a little bit scared for Roll20, but they have performed better here than I thought they would after the roster changes, so I want to remain optimistic.
Yeah, and right now Roll20 is sitting in the top 4 of the group stage, and this is relevant because this is a 8-team best-of-2 round-robin group stage where if you are top 4, you will go into the knockout phase in the upper bracket rather than the winner bracket. So this is very important for these teams. Each individual match may not seem that important yet because no one is getting eliminated in this phase, but it is. Whether you win the first match or the last match, when you know what's at stake, it's the same thing. So anyway, anyone that wants to be top 4 needs to win as many maps as they can.
Yeah, man, I love this kind of tournament format because what it does is it presents a where every single game, right, can add up to your end placement that you legitimately cannot consider any loss to any team that you would consider lower than yourself. You need to make sure that if you think you are going to get a 2-0 versus, for instance, maybe BTG, the team that's struggling around here, then you have to. And if you fail to do so, it will directly impact your chances of being at the top half, having that winner's bracket advantage, which I, at least from my time playing competitive Heroes of the Storm, always want to be in the winner's bracket. It would never want to risk anything whatsoever. It's so scary to try and make that climb.
Yeah, it's always difficult, both mentally and in terms of how many games you actually need to win and how few you are allowed to lose. Now, this was what is at stake, and now let's talk Heroes of the Storm. In terms of strategy and the meta, what do you think would be the appropriate way for Fnatic and Roll20 to approach this match?
I think for Fnatic, concentrating on probably Dahaka has got to be one of the biggest things, being such a staple for the roster of Roll20, and then macro play with that, adding on top of it. Their strengths have always been around those globals and manipulating the map. And Roll20, though they are one of the best in North America being able to deal with that, still relative power of North America to Europe, generally they still struggle at being able to deal when some of the best macro regions in the world really come bring the fight.
Now, we have seen some Dahaka play from Roll20 as well, different people playing on that Dahaka for them. But we've also seen a heavy emphasis on Ragnaros.
Yeah.
How do you think Ragnaros does as the solo lane against some of you know, the favorites that Fnatic might be running here?
I mean, most of the time, I feel like when we see Roll20 commit to the Ragnaros, it's mainly because it's accent in the map as well as the laning situation on top of it. So in the cases when it does accent the map, I really do appreciate it. But if we do see Roll20 find themselves in a situation where we see them venture towards the Ragnaros outside of that, I would be a little bit scared and feel like the hero pool and comfortability with this new roster change is kind of being displayed through the drafting.
Yeah, so Sky Temple, maybe no Ragnaros.
Yeah, please no Ragnaros on Sky Temple.
But Brax's Holdout and Tomb of the Spider Queen, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, we'd be good for that one.
So in terms of maps, we're going to have, you know, you have the map pool and then you have one ban each. And where do you think, what do you think are expected bans for these teams here?
Ooh, that's a good question. If I'm Roll20 looking at Fnatic, I would say that I would want to ban any of the maps that I like. Maps like Tomb, a map like BOE, whatever one I don't feel overly comfortable on compared to some of their biggest strengths. Cursed Hollow has got to be another one that they're looking at.
Yeah.
For Roll20, I don't know if their new roster has a major preference on any one of those in particular. Normally, I would have said something like Battlefield of Eternity is their biggest strength, but again, with this new roster, the shot calling and the transitions made onto that, I feel like they're going to find their own identity here, and we're still yet to kind of see that. Whereas Fnatic still seems hanging out from what we've known from them because they remain with the same shot color, and the core seems to be kind of play style the same.
Yeah, and you know, 2 new players come in. For example, Mene back on Dignitas. Never used to really play Sky Temple all that much. Fnatic happens to love it. So there's definitely that partial discord and variance in preference from some of the new members so far. Roll20, do you think they would like to go to Warhead Junction against Fnatic?
I think that if Fnatic left it up as an option, it would not be out of the realm of possibilities. I think that North America, whenever they feel like they can take any other region to that map, it's their best chance if they are the underdogs. That being said, it makes sense that Fnatic would in fact get the ban onto Warhead because of that sole factor. That if the Warhead ban goes out, maybe Roll20 wants to try and go to the Braxis holdout attempt to be able to catch them off guard. We'll find out. Map ban's coming in. Warhead from Fnatic. Ooh. Sky Temple from Roll20. And then, no surprise, Fnatic taking us to that Cursed Hollow.
Yeah. Cursed Hollow has been working out well for the European teams, particularly Fnatic. This is where they've been able to defeat KSV, the #1 seed, in this tournament. So that means that Roll20 is going to be having first pick and first ban. Now, some of these drafts have been going pretty fast, so I'd like to rack your brains on what do you think would be a first ban for Roll20?
The immediate glance has got to be focused onto, I feel like Tassadar, okay, they go with Genji instead here removed. Will Fnatic decide to commit to the standard of the ETC or TAS? Looks like they're going to go with that Tassadar. So where does Dahaka fall for this draft immediately? Is again, as I was saying before, a huge question. Is it first pick for the members of Roll20?
I think you do.
I think they have to as well.
And then, you know, Dahaka, he gets countered somewhat by Junkrat, we've seen on various maps. But, you know, Cursed Hollow is not really as much of a map for Junkrat maybe to beat Dahaka.
So we see Roll20 commit to the Rhaegar instead. And the only reason I felt like we may see them need to commit to that is just whether or not Fnatic would give it up or end up picking it for themselves and then denying, because again, the strength of Fnatic macro play and then ridding of one of the biggest tools that Roll20 is dependent on to deal with heavy pressure onto maps like Cursed Hollow, but they don't go that direction, still sticking to that high Anubarak, which Fnatic was the first team to kind of show that indication of prioritizing the Anubarak even before the Muradin nerfs came in.
Yeah, I mean, even at BlizzCon, Anubarak was not the top 3 warrior, but he had such a fantastic win rate, and Fnatic was at the forefront of it. Breeze on that Anubarak. Now, he has been making a few changes. Now at level 4, he's been taking Shed Exoskeleton, allowing Anubarak to get in a better position. This is useful because Cocoon's range was nerfed some time ago. So if you want to get a good position, a relevant Cocoon, that can be helpful.
Immediately considering whether or not Arthas is going to be picked up for Roll20. That doesn't fit their tendencies when it comes to pick bans in the past, but that is shown within this tournament meta rather consistently, especially as a response to the Greymane. I say that, but I forget the fact that ETC ended up making it through this draft, past the ban phase there, so it's not surprising to see them pick that up. And there was the Dahaka I was so very concerned about versus that first pick.
I mean, Roll20 has been first banning ETC quite a bit. Both ETC and Genji have been drawing bans, so not surprising to see that ETC pick up.
On the side of Fnatic, seem to be questioning whether or not they want to rid of Vala. This feels like it is a very, kind of more on the generic end of the bans. Got the Greymane. The opponent has yet to be able to pick up the mainstream damage dealers, so just ridding of that. You got to ask yourselves now, is Roll20 concerned about the Stukov pick? Because the Anubarak's already been locked in, it has been such a high synergy with a couple of the teams here, and it worked out very, very well. Or is it, in fact, not worth the ban resource? I am not convinced either way yet with the impact that we've seen it have. It's scary, but I don't know if it's worth ridding of for Roll20.
He hasn't been banned in the tournament yet. I wonder the same as you. Another concern is Abathur. Falstad would be pretty good picks here for Fnatic.
Abathur would be a very, very scary to be able to deal with for the members of Roll20.
You already have Dahaka who plays pretty well into it. I actually like that Falstad ban. Quacknix, one of the best Falstad players here at the tournament. One of the players that likes to pick that one the most still.
That was a snap Li-Ming from Fnatic.
It's like, oh, no Falstad? I'll take Li-Ming.
That was no hesitation. The fact that the second pick was even taken a moment here.
That's always weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you have the double pick and you just lock one in and then have doubts about the next.
Obviously, this is a strategic misplay on the side of Fnatic because they're giving more information for roughly 35 seconds sooner than they needed to over Roll20.
It is actually, yeah, it's actually true.
I mean, to be fair, when I drafted, I had that thought process. I'm giving you as little information as fast as I possibly can. When I pick, I'm picking both. But is that seriously going to be that big of a disadvantage? Nah.
If that were true, then in Hearthstone, maybe like everyone would rope in competitive play, like every time.
Yep. Oh my goodness. But Fnatic, they're wow. Quacknick's kind of throwing around his hands as if they're confused as well. I don't know about confused, but at least not as convinced as you would expect for how fast that Li Ming came in. They end up landing on the Lucio.
Stukov still possible in that final pick. You now have quick rotation. You've got good wave clear coming out of Greymane. Not all that much wave clear, but it is not really a wave clear map anyway.
The biggest thing I would like to see out of Roll20, because we have a double reset on the side of Fnatic, is just making sure that they do not pick individual heroes that struggle with those lower HP that are vulnerable to the single target burst that the members of Fnatic are going to unleash in this game.
I'm a bit disappointed. I thought Smexy was smiling and laughing at me.
Yeah.
With such love in his eyes, but then the camera showed the point of view was actually Mene.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you know.
I think a lot of people at home disappointed right now.
Yeah, you know, everybody wishes that you got stared at the same way that Smex stares at Mene.
Yeah. Still going on. Too bad you can't. Oh, there we go. But yeah, so what damage do you take? Vala's gone, Greymane is gone, Li Ming is gone. Could go with a mage, not really that nice. Suljin?
A Karzin
Solo assassin. Wow.
This is
really wild.
Interesting here for Roll20. It does make him vulnerable to that, double reset playstyle. The biggest weakness we were talking about in our last cast that we had together in the first series today was Junkrat is susceptible to getting one shot, one killed very, very quickly, and why maybe he hasn't made that climb through the draft yet in this tournament.
So Roll20 has some kind of stall comp. Dahaka, maybe ETC with split push, Rhaegar with mercs, Junkrat throwing grenades all the time to interrupt curse points. But grenades can be body blocked. Fnatic now has to decide if they will run solo support or double. One obvious choice would be Stukov for the double support. They could do Illidan with a much heavier macro emphasis, matching Dahaka with Illidan. Avatar is still an option.
Whatever this pick is I feel like it is going to be interesting. Other than the Stukov pick, which feels, because of how long they've taken, just because they know the synergy's there, they commit to the Arthas. Will be able to aid and slow down, especially pairing with the Lucio in this double reset compositions. It's pretty much if the double reset wasn't a win harder strategy, the Arthas surely makes it is by slowing things down to enable Li Ming to get reset on top of the reset. So feels not as off as I feel like the members for how long Fnatic took to draft that pick. So like it does land in the realm of like you understand the direction they're going. It's an older style strategy in theory being executed, but still not as convinced, considering how fast that Li Ming came in and some of the body language you saw. I feel like something was a little bit off from them.
Yeah, I agree. Then you have solo support Lucio. I think Fnatic's draft is fairly difficult to execute correctly. Of course, they are a very good team, so yeah, good on them. We have a lot more forgiving mechanics on the side of Roll20, but at the same time, Fnatic has more playmaking potential.
Yeah, they very much can force the hand if the members of Roll20 make a mistake very easily with their composition, and if they are successful, again, it just kind of, these team fights go from 0 to just 100 so fast because Li Ming will blow up the one target, and Greymane's like, okay, I'll just go ahead and make sure that if that target somehow didn't get one shot, or excuse me, once that one target goes down, that both of them dive onto the backline, make sure the next one goes down. It's very, very fast, so much so that I'm not sure that this double support on the side of Roll20 can be able to deal with that, mainly because of the Junkrat health pool. I'm surprised to see that commitment into such a straightforward composition that has answers to deal with it and just not vulnerable to 1v1 and high amount of burst heroes. And still, confidence because Roll20 ends up picking the Junkrat.
Yeah.
I'm ready to be, surprised here with the draft because on both ends it did feel a little bit off, but either way, this is where we have landed. Fnatic in the blue, Greymane, played by Quacknix. Breeze is on that Anubarak. Mene playing the Li Ming. Lucio, played by Smexy, and we have Bad Benny there, I believe, on Arthas.
And then on the right side for Roll20 Esports in North America, Cure on Karazim, Dainsky on Junkrat. We've got Justin on ETC, Buds on Rhaegar. And finally, Dahaka by Goku.
No team shown quite yet. 3 members of Roll20 up on mid, where we have the 4 of Fnatic up on bottom.
Block Party, pretty good choice against Greymane. But what about Lucio? It's a very fast attack speed. Yeah, but you know, there's always people going to be hit by Greymane first sometimes. Still good. Plus, Regeneration Globe's not that easy to get by on Cursed Hollow, especially if you play the Warrior right on Cursed Hollow. It's always nice to show up in every lane on Clockwork to get that globe, but that's not generally how Warriors play. Note Breeze, for instance. The hidden Warriors, the most deadly one.
This is, though not necessarily playmaking on the side of Roll20, this shows kind of respect and innovation within the strategy that they have, just because normally to play with vision, as long as they are, is something that is almost unheard of in the North American scene. Flip over the wall on a Breeze. Don't know if he has Burrow charge.
No, he Burrow charged into that tower.
He's not taking any damage quite yet, but Justing giving him the axe there, or I guess a different form from Zul'jin's, but in fact still an axe.
A space axe, the very best axe. So that was interesting, you know, the fact that Justin didn't show on lane it didn't make Breeze Burrow charge it into the tower, but it allowed Breeze to think that he would get away with that. A very cool play there with the power slide on Anubarak. Burrow charge wasn't available, so Breeze, in theory, he could have impaled in a direction as he saw ATC coming in, but the reaction speed wasn't there. And very nice concussive mine throw over Anubarak, and first blood to Roll20. Now everyone's setting up for the siege camp. Rhaegar showing up a little early. Bud's going to chill for about 7 seconds at that camp.
Rip Rhaegar, soon maybe going to struggle in his ventures being able to get those. Granted, he didn't actually go with the Lightning Bond in 1 here.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not being displayed here for Buds, but he's going to go ahead and still be able to take it on his own. Rhaegar still one of the best no matter what build you end up committing to in the support sustain. Got to say it, though. Surprised at how passive this game is in the early stages. I thought the members of Fnatic might try and be a bit more aggro. Roll20 has taken steps to ensure it's difficult to be very offensive in the way that maybe Fnatic wanted to, but I can't help but feel like it's just it's toned down from what I expected.
But didn't we feel that in draft already? I mean, granted,
yeah,
we could have been wrong, and we could just be like overplaying the atmosphere of the draft, but it seems to be falling perfectly in line with the follow-up early game so far. So pretty interesting, a whole different atmosphere. As Roll20 gets a nice near 1-level lead.
And they'll have Giants pressuring on the opposite side of the map. It's a perfect tribute spawn for them, only showing Cured as Justin waiting in the wayside in case Manny goes out too far. The members of Roll20 now showing 2 on bottom, so Fnatic knows that they can eventually get the tribute and resources up on top. It's just how much damage can Roll20 really make happen into that bottom lane. And Karzim ETC is really not the best siege duo, as we see Breeze and a Greymane and Anubarak doing way more impact over towards the mid lane and allowing Fnatic to catch up in experience.
The Beatles, the tank tower shots, Greymane's massive damage, single target and splash. Justin now moving up on ATC, level 7 has been reached. Roll20 must convert this to a tribute capture. And they will.
I really like what Fnatic ended up doing there with the decision making, just because there was an overcommitment to resources down below on the side of Roll20, and immediately I was like, well, how much damage can they get elsewhere? What this should be their tribute, not respecting how much delay Junkrat provides individually. And if you have ever played against compositions that are built innately to have heavy stall, specifically old school like Tacit Arterials are some of the best because they're how far away they can constantly cycle their delays one another, and you're never going to be able to kill one of those when they move up. And when you have that, you can't mess around with the tributes. When you are in, you are all in, or you are giving it up and you're willing to just try and match your opponent, understanding that tribute wasn't good for us and our spawn. And that was the exact decision-making out of Fnatic. So very well done, even though it did seem slow, understandably so, because of that Junkrat.
Yeah, I think I have appreciation for that as well, how Fnatic played it. And when you look at Roll20 with the ETC Karazim bot lane, they presented a small problem, which is an ETC Karazim push, together with what should have been a decent problem, Siege Camp, but altogether it made for a smaller problem than had they split their attention.
Yeah.
Because Liming had to be there for Siege Camp and also happened to be enough to stop ATC Karazim. Had Roll20 mounted a big defense or attack in the mid lane, maybe they would have had a nicer double prong to deal with Fnatic's pressure.
Second tribute spawning on the top half of the map again, knowing that the third tribute has to spawn bottom left and will be in favor of Fnatic. But because the spawning positioning once more, Fnatic gives it up. They are very comfortable sacrificing these tributes and worrying about the pressure onto the map. They catch themselves out a Goku, and with all that crowd control being dropped there's no way he's going to get the brush stack out, and Fnatic find themselves a kill, capitalizing on the transitions here of Roll20.
Instant boss call by Roll20, very good decision. They're going to be finished with that before Fnatic realizes it, or Fnatic has to let it get away. Next tribute, like you said, will be bottom left. That's a shoe-in for Fnatic, both in terms of XP and positioning. But if Roll20 gets this boss, gets a little bit of bonus XP, and then makes their way to bottom left boss, there is a chance of a really good silver lining for them, despite that Fort loss and the Haka loss. They get the boss, note how they position.
Looks like two of the members making the transition down, Justing.
Actually, what do you think if Roll20 just did like a 3-4 man top attack with the boss?
I would have 100% rather seen that transition. Bosses on their own are near, I don't want to say the word useless, but definitely leave something left to be desired most of the time. If they don't have minions behind them, it's even worse so the case. And a 5-minute boss is really unimpactful. So capitalizing on the mismatch and positioning on the side of Fnatic would have been far more advantageous than a boss pushing up on its own and towards that top lane.
Right. And now Roll20 has to get value out of this tribute. They're going for the big play. It is a bigger play, this one. Going for this curse.
Fnatic may just let the curse go and then force the fight immediately after, minimizing the amount of damage possible, but the top boss needs to die before that happens because you do not want to have to send somebody back.
Power slide interrupted. Ancestral is big though. Isolation on Arthas, preventing the use of Army of the Dead. Very nice job by Roll20. Perfect isolation by Goku. And now, like you said, Fnatic has to let the boss go, but with insult to injury, big top push already. That fort is down instantly.
And this is a very poor position to be in for the members of Fnatic. Their decision-making to sacrifice the early tributes is a very respectable one for the reasons we listed before. And curses generally are not that problematic in the very early stages of the game, but when you lose the fight immediately, which means you're losing the early pressure onto the curse, but more importantly, you're down a global as well. It takes what is a mid-tier objective, what is a early game curse, and makes it very, very problematic. Far faster than majority of the time that you see these early curses.
Yeah, this objective has been elevated to Sky Temple level.
Yeah, as we were referring to before.
Yeah. All right, so Roll20 gets a triple fort out of the curse, definitely more than you see in most cases. And not only that, they're getting keep wall as well.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to say when it comes to how those tributes went down. And most people, I think, look at this situation and go, Fnatic, you gave up 2 tributes. You deserve this type of situation. But again, if Fnatic gave up that tribute and then forced the fight afterward and was successful at all, even stalled out for a lot of seconds and forced Roll20 to second-guess themselves back and tap, that is a huge win because the early game curse is really not that beneficial. Now it's changed the global advantage. If Fnatic had that, I would even say it's advantageous to sacrifice that curse because it scales with time. And I don't want to say one of the few objectives that does, but it scales differently because it scales off the minions.
So what do you think if Fnatic gave it up but didn't force a fight right afterwards? Would that be an okay strat in your book?
The biggest thing is to make sure that Roll20 doesn't walk up to multiple structures and get free damage. They have to second-guess themselves at all points in time. And so as long as you find a way to be able to do that and do not let them do it around structures zoning you off, I'm fine with any way to make that happen. Just generally forcing the fight's the safest way to ensure that happens.
I guess the only I see what you're saying. The only concern I would have is that there was such a big red minion wave top already.
Yeah.
That if the fight had taken too long already, or God forbid it would go in Roll20's favor, that minion wave would have been, you know, knocking on the door of top keep.
Yeah.
And that would be really bad for Fnatic.
Completely agree with you.
So just highlights how many choices there are on Cursed Hollow, how you can play the game. Very interesting battleground.
Both teams very concerned about this bottom boss, understandably so. As we're scaling up through time, it gets a lot tougher as we pass the 11-minute mark.
I like Roll20's decision to stick together. This kind of composition is more powerful when together. You die alone in this kind of situation. You saw that to the Haka before, around the level 9 mark. The Haka being the split focus. Now, Arthur still looking to clean up the Haka's mess. That means that Roll20 potentially gets a 5v4 if there is an engagement. Getting vision from those frag launcher grenades by Junkrat.
They know the pressure is up on mid, so now trying to get zone out as Arthas displayed himself on top. It's a really good position that you see Justing hiding in there. It's very oftentimes if your opponent's going to be able to try and check that boss, that you can get that huge collapse, and they won't see you until they break the shrub, and it is far, far too late to be able to back out.
Yeah, I like Roll20's movement. They're now showing Junkrat at bot lane.
But this is a brilliant tribute for Roll20. I mean, they don't have to change any positioning at all, except if the Karazim gets caught out. Great cleanse there from Buds. The only reason he's able to get that second radius dash out.
And holding Ancestral Healing.
Patience.
Really good job, too. The Haka gets a tribute. Roll20 cleared out bot lane and is pushing it. Fnatic, likewise, on mid lane.
When Fnatic fails to have macro advantage, they seem to play a very different game. This is so death volley on their half.
Yeah.
Responsive to that of Roll20.
Fnatic doesn't feel like they're able to spread their wings too much in this game.
Goku is going to go ahead and move up here. Burrow charge, Impale as well, hits him. Cursed Bullet, 7-sided strike, gets up dropped. Cocoon reveal in a couple of seconds. No team, just a bunch of fireworks going up. Nobody gaining a kill.
Biggest cooldown on Fnatic side, Cocoon, 50 seconds. We look at Roll20, same thing, Isolation, 50 seconds. Fairly even trade here.
They did get 7-sided on top of that, so debatably a setback, but it's even shorter cooldown by 10 seconds than both. Tribute spawning on bottom in 6. Roll20 immediately nopes right on top to their boss, but the members of Fnatic, they seem to understand this. Going to go ahead and catch Justing.
Steel Trap there, together with ETC. There's the concussive mine. Great zoning by Dainsky. Indigo on Breeze.
Brushstock in, the drag's going to land, but the knockback there, Quacknix actually gets that sound barrier, so the members of Fnatic, they'll survive.
But the barrier was too late. The damage was sustained. Lucio's E ability, 100 mana, pretty long cooldown, does a lot of extra healing, but not able to heal everyone up to full. The problem of solo support, someone like Lucio, especially before level 16.
This is
now they are. Now they're full life. Fnatic is ready again.
Fnatic's in a situation too where they have a mega wave building on bottom. It's going to get not too much damage, but enough to be a problem and maybe eke over Roll20 to that 16 mark a half second before, because it should maybe get that turret. Cure's able to dash out there out of that hairy spot.
Dainsky unable to join his brethren yet as he threw a concussive mine away. Not able to use that to go over the wall, but he put himself in a good position. There we have that monster wave. Gently knocking on the door of Fnatic.
I thought that bottom mini wave would meet it a little bit farther out of the turret range, and that's when it would have been triple wave in and definitely got in the front wall, but it actually just half a second too late.
That's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, you have no idea. The timing of minions is single-handedly different. Like, the difference between 10 damage and 1,000 damage, oftentimes in Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah, because that was a 2 worth minion wave, soon to be joined by a third. There will be 3v1. They will like lose 1 or 2 minions, kill everything, then get to the tower without minion wave. They'll kill 2 towers. Now, they don't even kill 1.
Either way, sadly didn't result in too much. 16s for both teams dead even. Fnatic ends up going up and taking this boss from Roll20. Roll20 made the transition downward. It is going to be a very even trade. Without anybody on the side of Fnatic already making that transition, it's no way to be able to stop this. So teams mirroring one another. Small advantage for Roll20, considering they not only have more structures available or down onto the map, but more importantly, they're one tribute away from Curse Point.
This is a boss on a fort, so it won't do much to the keep. Unlike that, though, yeah, this boss can do more since the fort's already gone. What Fnatic does have is pocket XP. It's like a box lunch. These 2 forts convert to experience. It's the fact that they're even shows Fnatic has been soaking more XP. That's also because they were on the back foot. It means Fnatic could suddenly get ahead if they kill another mid fort, which is very easily reachable. Roll20 is putting on the pressure, going with the Bruiser camp here. And where will the next tribute be, Dreadnought? That's going to be huge.
I feel like that, oh man, it is going to actually impact a lot of how this game functions. And it is so bad for Fnatic, the fact that this spawns in this position.
The vision, the zoning that Junkrat can put up.
Just the fact that Roll20 was already there beforehand and now can just set up with Junkrat, and again, that vision that you were talking about. The members of Fnatic, they're going to get it, but they have the disadvantage in the position is now very, very aware by the side of Roll20.
And look at this Bruiser camp push, boss push at the bottom, at the mid. Roll20 is gaining much by delaying. Spread volley still available for Junkrat, being able to shoot 3 grenades out at the same time, once every 30 seconds.
Cure ends up taking a bit of damage, but he's just going to heal himself and make it out. Bad Benny in that choke, if anybody kind of pincers him in, he can get body blocked to death there, but Justicar seems too risky. Goku ends up getting a drag way before this is going to split the Anubarak back, and things are just fine for now. Nobody wanting to move up and force that channel.
Cure continuing to zone at the bottom. Another drag tongue hits on Greymane. Sound barrier comes in, but Greymane is low.
7-sided strike ends up going down, but all the members collapse on top of it. Riptire flies through, gets a bit of damage, splits them out. Cocoon is used, but immediately Roll20 drops back, gets the punches out. Mosh Pit's interrupted. Ancestral ends up landing, and now Roll20, they get a power side, and Breeze is down.
Breeze goes down. Smexy has to run for his life. Roll20 gets the single kill despite the interrupted mosh pit. Perfect Ancestral. Huge blades here by Buds. And Roll20 gets ready for the curse of a lifetime here. Getting the curse now, getting the siege camp, being in a 5 versus 4 situation. Roll20 has all to play for.
Oh man, even if Roll20 does not end up getting the win here, the biggest problem that they're going, or excuse me, the biggest situation that they're going to find themselves in is huge advantage over the next boss phase, in the next rotation. Fnatic has to make sure that this is not a double keep play. That's the ideal goal for the members of Roll20 with a curse at this point in time. 45 seconds remain. We will have Breeze back. All heroics online for both teams in 20 seconds. Actually, that's not true. We have Ancestral and Mosh are going to be a lot later. But other than that, every heroic back in 20.
And look at this. Goku pressuring bottom keep simultaneously while the rest of the team is pressuring top keep. Siege camps, minions do much. Roll20 unable to convert the curse to a keep kill, let alone 2. But they're playing for level 20, and the top boss will be available earlier than the bottom boss by just a bit. Fnatic's defense is good.
It is good, but when we consider what the game has looked like on that macro level for a majority of it, Roll20 has been winning it. And yes, they have been winning on the team fights as well, but the concern here is the fact that all 3 keeps are near dead on the side of Fnatic. They haven't had an answer for Goku this entire game. They've been deathballing. So other than poking around a boss in particular and winning that fight directly, I expect Roll20 to be able to secure these keeps just whittling away by purely Dahaka dark swarming enough minion waves.
Yeah, exactly.
So Fnatic
very well put. So
Fnatic has to find something to do.
And you know, if Roll20 ends up losing this map, which seems uncharacteristic from what we've seen so far, it will be some boss fight. They will look back and they say, for 18 to 20 minutes, we've played a near perfect game against one of the best teams in the world.
On one of their best maps.
And yeah, but then remember when we just accepted Fnatic forcing a 5v5 boss fight and we lost it? Wasn't that dumb? Yeah, that was dumb. Remember when?
Giant pressure, but Dahaka already made the transition back.
Ooh. Arthas?
He is a mile out. Good impale. At least getting the dismount. Cure still in hot pursuit. No.
Where did the impale come from?
You know, a while the new Barak appeared. Breeze is just everywhere, but nowhere, all at the same time.
Seriously, that impale came from a screen away, or maybe it was just the observing, because Bad Benny was in a tough spot. Now, boss must be coming up. There we go, top boss. This is that moment that either Roll20 will remember, or that will have never happened. Which timeline are we in? Goku still dark swarming the minion wave. And this is where Fnatic forces that 5-on-5. And this is where Roll20 does not accept the 5-on-5, right?
Wrong. Justin gets pressured. Ancestral mosh pit. 4-man mosh pit immediately interrupted there. Riptire goes through and gets a lot of damage. Goku unable to hit the drag. Sound barrier drops, and Fnatic is going to get aggressive. 7-sided use, but nobody going down quite yet. Breeze poking out there. We're looking on the backside. Bud's in a terrible position. Mane gets reset number 1. Goku dodges the damage, but I don't think it's going to matter. They are going to open this thing up, and now Roll20 is on the back foot. They have to retreat.
Do you remember that moment?
I do.
When Roll20 took that 5-on-5?
Remember when Fnatic is a team that knows when they hit that moment that they have to win the game, and then they will do exactly what is necessary to make sure that is an option. And they did that. They forced before Dahaka got back and was able to be effective. Also before he was able to even pressure the bottom keep. Neither situation of the global advantage was properly obtained by the side of Roll20 because of the aggression here and experience of Fnatic.
I mean, you know, most people could know that Fnatic would have to do that. Oh, Rhaegar isn't back yet.
Cure.
It's just the fact that Fnatic executes well enough to also make that work. Despite losing every fight in the game so far, or not getting the fights, Fnatic converts an impossible game into a map victory, and Roll20 will have that remember moment.
The big thing that I am looking at to take away here from this game is not only was I impressed, pleasantly surprised from the play on the side of Roll20. I did not expect them to come out and to be able to put Fnatic of all teams in kind of awkward lose-lose-ish certain situations. Yes, they didn't maybe always profit off of it, but the thought was there, and that is not something we can say North America's been able to do for a very long while. But also, what Fnatic looks like when globals are off the table, when that pressure isn't there in the same manner, they're comfortable, it does hit a lot of panic and a lot of just death ball.
They looked death ball-y, and they looked like they were struggling, but the experience always looked good.
Yeah.
However, the only way you can use that experience is if your opponent gives it to you. It's one of your favorite explanations sometimes when it comes to gameplay. You tell me this all the time. You say, yes, the XP looked even. Doesn't mean the game was even.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. Every keep was at 30% life. Global advantage, Roll20. They had all the vision tools they needed to take a good fight.
You are completely correct. I had an epiphany in the process of you kind of saying that. Think about that secondary curse. And the way that we saw the members of Roll20 playing it out. Tahaka never joined the 5-man, though there was a 1-man advantage for roughly 20 seconds. The remainder of the team took the Giants, and then they all pressured up towards top. Each one of the keeps was just kind of macro, slowly wave cleared into, but not a single one overly committed to within that window. When you make that kind of decision-making, you are on the assumption that that future call is going to be profitable. And again, you and I are sitting here going, a team like Fnatic, they understand where that's going to be. They are going to be the one that executes, and is Roll20 going to be that team? But to me, their decision-making on that second curse said, yes, they only thought that was the only way to play it out. If they 5-man commit to any one of the keeps, cycle to Haka, they have the same amount of pressure, debatably more amount of pressure in the exact same circumstance.
It's like the same thing as when they used ETC Karazim to push alongside with the initial siege camp. You create the permission for Quacknix on Li Ming, right?
Mene.
For Mene on Li Ming to come down there and to stop both the Haka and the minion wave that built up. Whereas, and I think of it now that you say it, it seems so obvious now. Whereas if you send the Haka top, you put a 5-man at the top, and it's against 4 defenders because 1 person was dead. You have the siege camp. You end up protecting it. You certainly get to keep top. And still someone needs to be bottom there to stop the minion wave, even minus Goku, even minus the Haka, because that one will die to an AFK minion wave pressure.
It's one of those situations where, as we've seen the growth of North America